All right, so picture this. You're gearing up for a contracts manager interview,
Oh, yeah.
which means you're already knee-deep in contracts and legalese,
Yeah.
right?
Definitely.
But on top of that, you've got this interview prep guide
Right.
with like 20 of the most common questions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where our deep dive comes in. We're not just going to list out the questions and answers. We're going to like peel back the layers and figure out the strategies behind them. It's like almost like,
You're in the interviewer's head.
yeah, decoding the interviewer's mind.
Exactly.
So you can walk into that interview feeling like super confident and ready to just blow them away.
Ready to impress, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, think of it this way. You've got this cheat sheet,
Okay.
but it's not just the answers.
Yeah.
It's the why behind the questions.
Ooh, I like that.
Like, understanding what the interview is actually looking for
Okay.
is key to crafting responses that really hit the mark.
Yeah, because it's not about like memorizing lines.
No, not at all.
It's about showcasing that you know what you're doing. I know.
Exactly. Showcasing your expertise.
Yeah, it's the word.
And speaking of expertise,
Yeah.
this guide really hammers home the importance of practical experience.
Okay.
They don't just want to hear about theory, you know.
Right.
They want to see how you've actually applied your knowledge in real-life situations.
Real world stuff.
Yeah, so think of it this way.
Right.
Anyone can memorize definitions and legal concepts.
Yeah, sure.
But can you tell a compelling story
Uh-huh.
about a time you negotiated a really tricky vendor agreement
Oh, yeah.
and saved your company, like, a ton of money?
Ooh, now we're talking.
That's what they want to hear.
Okay.
And that's where this thing called the STAR method comes in.
The STAR method.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It stands for situation, task, action, result.
Okay.
It's basically a framework
Right.
for structuring your answers
Uh-huh.
to behavioral interview questions.
Okay.
And the result part is where you can really make an impact
Ooh.
by quantifying your achievements.
Show me the numbers.
Yes,
Opt in.
exactly.
Okay.
So instead of just saying, I negotiated a vendor agreement,
Right.
you can say, I negotiated a vendor agreement that saved the company $100,000
Whoa, okay.
compared to the previous contract.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's a much stronger statement.
It's like night and day.
Right.
Like, show me the money, but not in a greedy way.
Exactly.
But like, hey, look what I can do.
Yeah, I'm effective, and here's the proof.
Yes, exactly.
So it's all about demonstrating tangible results.
Love it.
And that brings us to another really crucial aspect highlighted in the guide:
Okay.
conflict resolution and negotiation.
Oh, juicy.
There's a question in there
Huh?
about managing a complex dispute between two parties in a contract.
Oh, that sounds tough.
It can be,
Yeah.
but this is where your soft skills really come into play.
Okay.
Things like active listening,
Mm-hmm.
communication, collaboration.
So like the stuff that makes you human.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Not a robot lawyer.
Exactly.
All right, but I do have a question.
Yeah.
The guide mentions this thing called good faith in contract law.
Yeah, good faith.
And it sounds pretty straightforward,
Yeah,
but I feel like there's got to be more to it
you're right, there is.
than meets the eye.
Good faith is one of those concepts
Yeah.
that seems simple on the surface,
Uh-huh.
but it can get really nuanced in practice.
Okay.
Basically, it means acting honestly and fairly,
Okay.
upholding the spirit of the agreement,
Okay.
not just, the letter to the law.
Right.
But the thing is, how good faith is actually interpreted
Yeah.
can totally depend on the situation
I see.
and the jurisdiction.
So it's not just about following the rules.
No,
It's about understanding like the intent behind the rules.
exactly.
Okay.
So let's say you have a contract with a vendor,
Okay.
and there's a clause about delivering goods by a certain date.
All right. I'm follow.
But then something unexpected happens. Like, let's say there's a natural disaster
Oh, no.
and the vendor is delayed.
Okay, so they can't meet the deadline.
Right.
But like it's not really their fault. So is that a breach of contract?
Well, a strict interpretation might say yes,
Uh-huh.
but a court could look at the circumstances
Okay.
and rule that the vendor was acting in good faith despite the delay.
Interesting. So there's some wiggle room.
Yeah, it's about looking beyond the black and white of the contract
Okay.
and considering the broader context.
That's fascinating. So even though it's called contract law,
Right.
there's a lot of like interpretation and judgment involved.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's why it's so important for contracts managers
Yeah.
to not just know the law,
Right.
but also understand how it actually plays out in the real world.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And speaking of law,
Yes.
the guide also talks about like knowing your stuff
Uh-huh.
when it comes to relevant laws and regulations.
Absolutely.
Especially this thing called the Uniform Commercial Code,
Yes, the UCC.
or UCC for short.
Yeah.
Sounds important.
It's like the Bible for commercial transactions.
Oh, wow.
It covers a huge range of topics.
Okay.
From sales and leases
Huh.
to secured transactions and negotiable instruments.
Okay, so pretty broad.
Yeah, very broad.
Are there any, like, specific sections of the UCC
Well,
that our listeners should be ready to talk about in an interview?
it really depends on the industry
Uh-huh.
and the types of contracts they'll be handling.
Okay.
But Article 2, which deals with the sale of goods,
Okay.
that one comes up a lot.
Okay.
For example, understanding the concept of perfect tender.
Perfect tender, what's that?
It means the goods have to perfectly match
Okay.
what's in the contract
Okay.
to avoid disputes.
So no room for error.
Well, there are some exceptions,
Okay.
and that's where the nuances come in.
Gotcha.
A good contracts manager needs to be able to analyze
Yeah.
the specific terms of the contract,
Yeah.
apply the right UCC provisions,
Right.
and determine if a breach has actually occurred.
So it's not just about knowing the law.
No.
It's knowing how to apply it strategically.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here.
And don't forget about staying up to date on legal changes.
Oh, right, because laws are always changing, right?
Constantly evolving. Yeah.
So you got to be on top of it.
You have to make sure your contracts are compliant.
That makes sense. And the guide even suggests
Yeah.
mentioning any relevant certifications you have
Yes.
during the interview.
It's a great way to show your commitment to professional development.
Right, like you're invested in your craft.
Exactly.
And you're staying ahead of the curve.
Yeah. It shows initiative and a desire to learn and improve.
I like it.
Keep growing.
Keep learning. So it's like you're always learning new stuff in this field, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Which brings me to that part in the guide about risk management. There's a question about, like, spotting those potential risks and liabilities hidden in a contract.
Yeah, those tricky clauses.
And I feel like that's where all that legal knowledge comes in handy, right?
For sure, you need
And all that constant learning we were just talking about.
you need a sharp eye for detail
Okay.
to really catch those potentially problematic clauses.
Right.
And you got to understand
Yeah.
what all the different terms mean.
The implications.
Exactly. And sometimes you need to know
Yeah.
when to call in the big guns.
Oh, you mean like
Legal counsel.
legal counsel, yeah.
It's like preventative care for contracts.
I like that analogy.
Minimizing risks before they even have a chance to pop up.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So you're not just reacting to problems.
Right. You're preventing them.
Exactly.
And I imagine part of that prevention involves
Yeah.
being willing to ask those tough questions.
Oh, absolutely.
And push back on terms that aren't,
Yeah. You can't be afraid to negotiate.
favorable.
Exactly. A good contracts manager isn't just a rubber stamp.
No, you got to advocate for your organization.
Right. You need to be able to advocate for your organization's interests.
Right. And make sure the terms are
Yeah.
not just legally sound,
Yeah, legally sound.
but also beneficial
And beneficial, that's key.
to everybody involved.
To all parties involved, exactly.
And
That means
sometimes that means
that means having those
difficult conversations.
difficult conversations.
Which the guide also touches on that.
Oh, yeah, there's that question in there
Yeah.
about dealing with those tough conversations with clients and vendors.
Right. And that can be a real test
Feel like a test, yeah.
of your composure
Yeah,
and your negotiation skills.
because things can get heated.
You
Rhythm.
can, but you got to stay calm.
Keep your cool.
What's interesting here is that the guide
Yeah.
really emphasizes empathy in these situations.
Empathy.
Yeah,
Right.
really trying to understand the other side's concerns, even if you don't agree with them.
Even if you don't agree, because it's about finding that middle ground.
Compromise.
Yeah, those win-win solutions.
Which kind of brings us back to
It does.
that good faith idea, right?
It all ties together.
It's not about being right.
No.
It's about being fair and understanding.
Exactly. And that's especially important when you're dealing with
Yeah.
international contracts, which the guide also talks about.
Oh, right, because those add a whole other layer of complexity, don't they?
They do, because cultural differences
Yeah.
can really impact how good faith is interpreted.
And how negotiations are conducted, right?
Exactly. So it's like
You're speaking different languages almost.
sometimes it feels that way.
Even though you're technically speaking the same language.
Right. The words might be the same,
Yeah.
but the meanings can be totally different.
So you have to be really mindful of those
You do.
cultural nuances.
Understanding different legal systems
Right.
is one thing, but navigating unspoken customs, communication styles
All that stuff, yeah.
It adds a whole other level of complexity.
So it's not just about what you say,
Yeah.
it's how you say it,
And how you understand what they're saying.
even if it's not explicitly stated.
Exactly. Reading between the lines,
Picking up on those nonverbal cues.
it's a subtle art,
It sounds like it.
but it's an important one.
Wow, you've really opened my eyes to
Yeah.
the complexity of this role.
It's a challenging but rewarding field.
For sure, but let's bring it back down to earth for a second.
Okay.
And talk about something a bit more, I don't know,
Yeah.
concrete,
All right.
like contract templates
Templates. Yeah.
and documentation.
Uh-huh.
The guide asks about developing effective templates.
Right?
Seems pretty straightforward,
Yeah.
but I bet there's more to it
There's always more to it than meets the eye.
than meets the eye, yeah.
It's not just about filling in the blanks.
Okay.
A well-crafted template
Oh,
needs to be legally sound,
right, of course.
but also user-friendly,
Okay.
with clear, concise language.
So people actually understand it.
Exactly. Minimize the ambiguity.
So you're almost like a translator then, right?
In a way, yeah.
Taking that legalese
Uh-huh.
and turning it into
Plain English.
something everyone can understand,
Exact.
but you still need that
You need the legal expertise.
legal expertise.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll be working closely with legal professionals,
Okay.
researching relevant laws,
Uh-huh.
making sure everything is buttoned up tight.
Gotcha. And then, of course, comes the
Then comes the fun part.
ongoing management of those contracts.
Right, making sure everything runs smoothly.
The guide wraps up with questions about
Mhm.
renewals and execution
Yeah, the whole life cycle.
and making sure everything goes
From start to finish.
smoothly.
This is where being proactive
Okay.
really comes in handy.
Proactive.
And having those strong organizational skills.
So like systems for...
Systems for tracking deadlines,
Okay.
anticipating potential issues,
Yeah.
making sure communication is happening on time.
So you're not just drafting contracts.
Yeah.
You're basically shepherding them
That's a great way to put it.
through their whole life cycle.
You're the guardian of those agreements,
I like that.
making sure they're executed properly
Okay.
and actually serve their intended purpose.
So it's a lot of responsibility.
It is.
But it sounds...
But it's also incredibly rewarding.
rewarding. Yeah, but before we
Yeah.
get too sentimental here, I
Yeah.
gotta ask,
Sure.
when we were talking about pushing back on those
Mm-hmm.
unfavorable terms,
Yeah.
how do you do that
That's a great question.
without,
Yeah.
damaging the
You
relationship
don't want to burn any bridges.
with the client or the vendor?
Exactly. And it goes back to everything we've been talking about.
Okay.
Understanding their perspective,
Uh-huh.
communicating clearly and respectfully,
Right.
and finding creative solutions.
Yeah, address everyone's needs.
Okay.
It's a balancing act, for sure.
Sounds tricky.
But mastering it is what makes a good contracts manager.
Yeah.
A truly great one.
So that's what interviewers are really looking for then.
That's what they want to see.
Someone who can handle all those complexities
Navigate those tricky situations.
with finesse.
Exactly.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive
Yeah.
into the world of contracts manager interviews,
Right.
what are the key takeaways
Ooh, good question.
our listeners should really remember when they walk into that interview room?
Well, it's about showcasing yourself
Okay.
as more than just a contract expert.
More than just a contract expert.
You need that practical experience, obviously,
Yeah, of course.
and a rock-solid understanding of contract law.
Right. The fundamentals.
But don't forget those communication and negotiation skills.
Right. We talked a lot about those.
They're essential.
And that meticulous attention to detail.
Oh, absolutely. You can't miss a thing.
It's almost like being a
Like a legal eagle
a legal eagle.
with a little bit of, I don't know,
Yeah.
diplomacy sprinkled in.
Dash of diplomacy.
And a whole lot of organizational skills.
You got to be organized for sure.
That's a great way to put it.
But beyond all those technical skills,
Okay.
something else in that interview prep guide
Yeah.
really stood out to me.
Oh, what's that?
They emphasized showcasing your passion for contracts.
Passion for contracts.
Yeah, I know it sounds a little strange.
I mean, I get excited about a good spreadsheet, but
I know, right? Contracts?
but think about it.
Okay.
Contracts are like the backbone of any business.
Okay. Yeah.
They make deals happen.
Right.
They minimize risks.
Uh-huh.
And they help companies achieve their goals.
So they're pretty important.
Absolutely. And if you can show the interviewer
Yeah.
that you understand the power of contracts
Okay.
and that you genuinely enjoy this work,
Okay.
that you're passionate about it,
Yeah.
it'll really set you apart. So it's not just about knowing the rules.
No.
It's about understanding how those rules
Yeah.
impact the bigger picture.
Exactly. Seeing the strategic implications of your work.
It's like a whole different level of understanding.
It is. And that's what makes a contracts manager truly invaluable.
Wow, you've given our listener a lot to think about today.
I hope so.
Any final words of wisdom
Yeah,
before they head into that interview?
preparation is key.
Okay.
Reflect on your experiences.
Uh-huh.
Practice explaining your skills.
Yeah.
Using that STAR method we talked about.
Right. Situation, task, action, result.
Exactly. And go in there confident,
Yeah.
ready to show them why you're the perfect fit for the role.
I love it. And who knows?
Maybe you will find yourself.
You might even find yourself getting excited about those contracts.
You never know.
Well, thanks for joining us today on this deep dive.
My pleasure.
We'll be back soon with more insights and analysis
Sounds good.
to help you navigate the world of business
And beyond.
and beyond. Until then.